Movie adaptations are when you take something that already exists and you add Jack Black or Chris Pratt to it. But they're not just an opportunity for us to hear our favourite characters voiced in the exact same way, they're also bad. So when I found out that they were making a movie based off of my favourite maths-based therapy sessions, I was nervous, and rightfully so. But something weird happened when I went to watch it in that theatre. I liked it. Hell, I liked it a lot. I wouldn't say I loved it because, I've got commitment issues, but it was a really good time. Sure, it had some issues, like a way too long, awkward conversation with an ex that hit a little bit too close to home for me. And also there was this one moment where I was the only person in the cinema, and when I walked out, the ticket lady, she was laughing. I'm pretty sure she wasn't laughing at me, but glad they took that out of the DVD release. But despite its flaws, I felt satisfied with the movie in a way that I hadn't for a lot of other tie-in movies. So, for today's first ever breakdown, we are going to be exploring what Honor Among Thieves made me realize I was wanting to see out of every other movie adaptation ever. Look guys, it's my first video, I'll get better with the titles, I promise. Part 1. Why do you make this, my dude? For our first section, we're going to be viewing movies as a product. Something that makes me sick to my stomach and goes against all the morals I claim to have during drunken rants about artwork. But at the end of the day, these are companies, and they have to provide something that people will want to buy. Fill a gap in the market, target a demographic that they may be able to cater to. Now, the obvious reason that a company would use an existing brand is obviously to drag in their existing audience, get butts in seats, and that's fine. I get it, this isn't going to turn into an anti-capitalist rant, but you do have to consider what's new that you're bringing to the market. I mean, take Dungeons and Dragons. Before, the only way I could experience the Forgotten Realms was by having a friendship group who understood how to schedule properly, playing a video game that was far too horny for my asexual ass. Or I had to watch a bunch of really talented friends give me FOMO. Yes, this channel was made so that I had an opportunity to maybe get onto Dimension 20, Brennan. My DMs are open. I just think that it's really super that they made this movie so that a wider demographic could experience this really fantastic magical world. It made it a movie that was genuinely worth existing. The Cowboy Bebop live-action TV show is a piece of media that I do not think was worth existing. Now, I watched this show on Netflix with my dad. I thought it was alright. I mean, the choreography was really cool, and I thought Spike's casting was actually absolutely fantastic. I would love to see him continue playing that character so much. But all the way through watching this show, I kept leaning across to my dad, telling him about how certain moments were done better in the animated series. And that is because I'm an only child who was never taught how to make family bonding not exclusively about me. But this plot was essentially the exact same as the original version. The original version that we scrolled past on the exact same streaming platform to watch this version. Why did you make this? I mean, you do have to ask why something like this gets made. I mean, perhaps the director is just really excited about this world and wants to take a swing at it, or maybe they thought that it was time for the new generation to experience this amazing story all over again. We'll never know the true reason, will we? But it is important when you're making art to consider, am I bringing something new into the world? Am I not stepping on the toes of those that came before me? And if you're telling a story with your original voice based on your personal experiences, I don't think you have to worry about that at all. However, if you don't, you'll just be regurgitating the same stories over and over again. And when you end up doing that, well, congratulations, buddy. You're Marvel Studios. Enjoy your gazillion pounds. Part 2. Does the thing that you're making feel like the thing that you base the thing that you're making off of? That was good. Now I know what you're thinking, this is a really obvious point, but there is a certain skill required to make sure that your art enjoyably adapts from its original medium to the new one that you've decided to work in. I don't think if they faithfully stuck to what Dungeons & Dragons originally was, I would have enjoyed this movie at all. Insert a skit about Dungeons & Dragons thing showing up and then the encumbrance rules shows up instead of an actual movie. That's really funny, Robin. That's really funny. Well done. You made comedy. It is a fine line to walk to make sure that you can adapt this property into your new medium, but still keep the heart of what made that property what it is. Like, sure, the Dungeons & Dragons movie never asked me to flirt with my friend who's pretending to be a goblin. But here's hoping for the sequel, right guys? This movie did just enough to kind of satiate the rabid fan that lives within me. It showed me the fantasy world that I loved, the monsters that are quintessential to this universe, the spells that we've never seen on the big screen before. You stray too far away from the heart of your franchise, and you end up pretending that the Battleships movie was based on the board game. On the link to the game, producer Brian Goldner said, "The fundamental threads of the brand does propel the storytelling. But we didn't talk about a movie where you and I sit across a table from one another and call out D4 and C5. Hey Brian, what the hell are you talking about? That's all the game is. You remove that from the game, you've just got boats. And you can't say it's a tie-in movie because you both just happen to have boats. You know what? Screw it. We're gonna link some other classic movies to board games. Wolf of Wall Street really nailed the Monopoly aesthetic. Oh my god, guys, they really captured the emotion of Guess Who through Silence of the Lambs. The King's Speech really fleshed out my favorite chess piece. Brian, just admit that you didn't know what movie you were making. Part 3. Put that fish back in its water, please. It's gonna drown, but in reverse. Oxygenate, I don't know. I'm not a fish. So sure, you've decided to make yourself a Frederick Fazbear movie. I mean, the kids will love it. They literally spend hours at a time watching a man unrelated to the franchise write the lore of the franchise for the game developer. They will come to the cinemas. But those kids sometimes come with parents. And if those parents don't understand what's going on in your movie, they're going to go on Mumsnet and they're going to maybe ask about it being satanic or something, and that is going to tank your chances of getting a sequel. That's why you use the fish out of water technique, so that there's someone in the universe that's equally as confused about what's going on as the parents, so that they can get it explained to through them. And you know what? It sucks ass. But like in a bad way for all the ass suckers in the audience. Comment below if you sucked ass. Now, yes, this is a more subjective point. If used by a really talented writer who has purpose behind what they're doing, fish out of water is a really useful device, but it's never used with purpose in tie-in movies. All it ever is some random business dude stepping through a portal into a magical world and going, whoa, what is this place? You go to the reverse end of the spectrum, you take Sonic the Hedgehog from his cool fantasy world and you put him in his friend's sister-in-law's wedding. I don't want to watch that. I don't care. I am so glad that for the third movie, they are bringing back on-screen child death, which is a true staple to the Sonic franchise. For me, the Dungeons & Dragons movie was a breath of fresh air because it included an entire cast of characters that were from the world, and they stayed within that fantasy world the whole time. And they taught you about that world through show, not tell. I mean, you saw a woman turn from big bird bear thing into a woman and nobody looked that shocked. Sick. Now I know that that's a thing that people can do, and it's not like unheard of or anything. That's good writing. I'm not saying don't use the fish out of water technique. I'm just saying consider properly what it adds to your narrative before you use it. For example, I've recently been reading Kindred. Damn it. It depicts a woman being propelled outside of her home to a different place and time with no real understanding of where she is necessarily by the start of it, and it tackles the grief of not knowing if you've just lost everything that you've ever built up in your life, and the fear of not knowing how you can get home, if you even can get home. I think it's fantastic. I think that more media, if they use the trope, should use it in the same way that this does, to complement the themes of your story. What I think I'm trying to say is that I personally think that Space Jam would have been a 10 times better film if Michael Jordan full on snapped because he was faced with the eldritch nightmare that was being dragged from your family into a cartoon world. And I think companies should start making, me make films. I've got good ideas. Please, you cowards, you cowards. Part 4. Actually liking the thing that you're making, please. Capitalism's evil, and it's ruining the art industry. And personally, I think that we should just have a big field that all the artists can go run and play on, and they can make art together without having to worry about financial benefits or anything like that. And also, occasionally, they can kiss if they want to. That's how I see it going. On this channel, I kind of want there to be an understanding that if I rip into a piece of artwork to be all edgy and stuff like that, I still think the art has merit, even if it's just in us understanding what we want to avoid when we go into the artistic world. I mean, take Cowboy Bebop. I ripped into it a little bit, but I still think that there were some really amazing artists working for it who were just slightly misguided, and with a different piece of media, they can go on to make something really amazing that I would love to see. I mean, the sets were fantastic, the choreography were fantastic, the acting was actually really nuanced at times, and they had a really hard time adapting the really expressive acting. But I have no problem saying that I think the Borderlands movie is just bad. And that's because I don't think that it's art. I think it is a product to its core, but one of those products that has no purpose in existing, like Marmite. That's right, this is a hill I am willing to die on. I think all of you that say you like it are just lying for clout, guys. And if you have a problem with that, come and fight me. Here's my home address. Please don't come and fight me if you see me on the street. I'm very weak and I bruise easy. I know. Let's round up a bunch of famous faces, regardless of casting, and have them just start saying a bunch of buzzwords that we read off of the Borderlands wiki. That'll make us the big bucks. How'd that go for you, gamers? This movie just screams a production studio that didn't engage with the source material before jumping in, and that really shows in the finished product. I mean, it didn't have enough love go into it to make it fun and exciting for the fans, but also they didn't really understand the property they were using enough to make it accessible to a new audience either. It just sucked. On the flip side of that, you have the D&D movie, which actually had its cast play a game of D&D during their rehearsal process, so that they could understand what this game that they're adapting actually feels like for a player. And the writers, they clearly really understood the world, if not absolutely adored it, with some of the treats they put in for the fans. I mean, there was stuff like the playful riffing with the wildly convoluted puzzle that they find just in the middle of nowhere. And also this really fun moment where they reinterpret the magic system by physically showing you what it looks like when a wizard loses concentration on a concentration illusion spell. And I think that's fantastic. I think that is so fun. The real issue we're seeing at the moment in the industry is a bunch of directors not caring about the material that they're adapting. They just see it as an opportunity to get more people into the cinema to see their movies. And I think that is such a depressing trend for the industry as a whole. But it's what happens when a bunch of passionless people just see things that we love as a potential paycheck. And I really hope it stops soon, because a lot of these franchises they've adapted deserve good cinema around them. I did it, Mr. Algorithm! I included a random anti-capitalist rant in the medium of a weirdly impassioned speech in the middle of my comedy video essay. Oh please start recommending me under all the other leftist YouTubers. I feel like I've deserved it. The conclusion. This has been a hyper-subjective look into what I think makes tie-in media really lackluster recently. It's not as comprehensive as I may have liked, but this is my first attempt to put a video like this together, and I didn't want that first attempt to be me yapping at you for an hour. As such, if there's any points you would have liked to hear me talk about, get them in the comments, yo! And maybe one day I'll redo this video, because like the media industry absolutely adores pumping out the same thing but a second time, so maybe I will too as a little treat. And as we reach our conclusion, we have but one question to ask. Was Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves the best movie adaptation ever made? No, of course it wasn't. I mean, that title obviously goes to the Mario movie because it had both Chris Pratt and Jack Black in it. I mean, they got the wrong Chris for Honor Among Thieves. What are you talking about? Were you even paying attention?